Have you ever wanted something that feels like a TV show, but that you can stick into your ears and you can listen to whenever you're walking, driving, doing chores around the house, anything like that? Because that is what an audio drama is. So for a while I wasn't sure what these were called and where to kind of put them into a genre, but I think it's been generally decided that they are audio dramas. Now an audio drama is exactly what I just told you it basically was. The idea behind it being that they are essentially kind of audiobooks, but with a whole cast of characters where there is a story played out with background noises. You've got the explosions, the music, the drama, the moments, the small little footsteps, everything you need that if you closed your eyes you could visualize the entire story, and they are fantastic. Now we're in this stage at the moment where I think what they're essentially becoming is, if somebody has an idea for a TV show but nobody's got the money to do it, they turn it into an audio drama. So you're getting some big ones, and I'm going to talk about a few today that are great, and I'm going to talk about some big ones as well from some big brands like Marvel, DC and Star Trek. So there's some big ones I'm going to talk about today, but I want to kind of talk to you about them. I want to talk to you about why I love them, and I'll talk to you about them individually as well as audio dramas as a whole, because I feel like if you are a bookish person, which is why you're here, because you like books, I feel like an audio drama might be something for you as well, especially if you've got quite a creative mind. If you do like TV shows but find yourself with not enough time because you're always out and about, or you've got work, or you don't know, like to exercise, something like this, an audio drama may be perfect for you. And I want to give you some recommendations of some to listen to as well. So let's get into it about why I think you should be listening to some audio dramas. So first off, I want to talk about where you can find audio dramas, because you may think, okay, do I need a special app for this? No, they are anywhere you can find a podcast. They are essentially podcasts with a much higher production value, with all your kind of your walking steps, your tones, your outdoor noises, your bird tweets, all of this sort of stuff. So Spotify, the Apple Podcast app, any app that you use to get podcasts, you can get them. Additionally, because that's becoming such a big thing, Audible have invested quite a bit of money in getting their own. For example, they did a George Orwell one about 1984 that's an Audible exclusive. Now I think after a year or so they do start to come out elsewhere. Spotify have some exclusive ones, a couple of which I'm going to talk about again today. I've not double checked, so I'll put a little thing at the bottom whether these exclusive ones are now available across other podcast platforms, but it's up to you. I mean, we don't really mind having the Spotify app downloaded and Audible at the same time, because they're the only two that are really doing exclusives at the moment. But let's get into it about which audio dramas I think you should, give a listen. So the first audio drama I actually listened to was a couple of years ago now, and I've actually written reviews for all of the audio dramas I've gone on to actually finish. I start some and don't finish them, but every one I finish, I write a review for, and you can find those over on my website down here below. But the first one was Case 63. Now this is slightly different to the other ones and slightly different to how I've described everything really, in that it's not that big production. Essentially, Case 63 is focused around two people sitting in a room discussing the idea that one of the people involved in the room may well be from a different time, may well be able to predict things. It's a very interesting conversation. It's a very different type of feeling to some of the other ones I'm going to talk about, where you can almost hear them moving through the scenes, this sort of stuff. This is very much two people kind of sat in a room discussing things, but it's fascinating. The idea being behind it that there are twists, there are interesting conversations going on, that there are moments where you think, oh my God, this is really clever, where the voice acting is really impressive, this sort of thing. So the idea of it is the entire case takes place inside a therapy room where one of the patients, one of the people involved, is considered mentally unwell. And the doctor has more and more discussions with them. And as they start to discuss things with them, this patient starts to say things that they would only be able to say if they had come from the future. They would only be able to say these things if they knew more about the doctor, about where things are going on in society, than they could realistically know without being from the future, if that kind of makes sense. They start to say things where you think, oh, how would you know that? And the doctor themselves starts to get pulled in, and it's this kind of what's going to happen, all this sort of stuff. So it's fascinating. It's really, really cool. It's a fantastic listen. It's one of those audio dramas, like the others, I guess, really, where you really pulled in because of the atmospheric, fantastic voiceovers, fantastic narration, voice acting, all of this, you really get pulled into it. So that's Case 63. That's the first one I listened to, the first one I ever listened to, and I still think it's a fantastic start, because if you're not ready for the big explosions, the big cutscenes, the big fight scenes, any of the other stuff that might feature in some of these other ones, that's a brilliant one to get started on. The next one I listened to was Batman Unburied. So this was the first time where I thought, okay, what if some big entity, i.e. DC, took one of their big things, Batman, and made it into an audio drama, would it be good? Would it be something worth listening to? If this was a TV series, this is something I would watch. Now, Batman Unburied focuses on Batman in a slightly different sort of idea. He's actually a forensic pathologist rather than being, you know, a detective, this sort of thing. So he's really focused on postmortems and working in the morgue and how people have died and working back to how they now have got there, that sort of thing. It does feature some of your great Batman villains. It does feature some of your great Batman allies, this sort of stuff as well. And it's also, the voice of Batman is, let me check, Winston Duke, who, if you don't know, stick a picture of him up here, is a great voice actor. And that one is a little bit more drama, a little bit bigger. There's a little bit more going on in that one, a few more explosions, a few more sound effects, this sort of thing. So if you've listened to Case 63 and you want something bigger, I would definitely recommend going with Batman Unburied, though it's not as big as some of these other ones, and we'll talk about some other big ones that I've listened to or am currently listening to. So it only makes sense to continue. So the next one I kind of listened to, and I'm not sure if this is actually the order I listened to it in, but is The Riddler, Secrets in the Dark. So this is made by the same people that did Batman's Unburied, but focuses on Riddler, who is a kind of anti-hero slash hero. He is a person that likes to commit crimes and leave riddles because he thinks it's fun. It focuses on him as a person. It focuses on a relationship as his sister, his family, his home life, why he turns into the person he is, and his relationship with Batman and some of the other people that he meets along the way. And that kind of focuses on that story. This has a little bit bigger, I feel, production to it. There are bigger moments, there are explosions, there are big sad moments. And a lot of these stories, the same with Batman, they take big risks. As I said, they take some of the characters that we all know, especially if you're a DC fan, if you know the Riddler, if you know Batman, you're going to thoroughly enjoy these. And they take some of the characters we all know and they put them into these audio dramas, and you can hear them and you're so immersed. And some of them are fantastic. I don't know if you know, but with the Apple device, they have something called spatial audio, which is their fancy term for being able to make the sound like it's coming from different spaces. So the technology they use on their phones is something they can use head tracking, which basically means if I hold my phone in one position, I can move my head and the sound will continue to come from that one space in my ears. Very clever. But also what it allows you to do is it allows essentially stereo sound, but within like all the directions. And some of these audio dramas, I'm not sure if any of the ones I'm mentioning can guarantee you that, but I know some of the audible ones feature spatial audio, which is really, really clever. So basically it sounds like they're all around you. Anyway, The Riddler is a great option if you wanted to give that one a go as well, especially if you enjoyed Batman Unburied. And then the most recent one that I finished, and I think it's the most recent one I finished, though I do have a memory of finishing another one, but I don't actually have that or a full review written up of that one yet, so I'll have to write a review of that up at some point. But the one I have finished is Ad Lucem. Now, Ad Lucem I was interested in because it features Christopher Pike, who is from, you know, the more modern Star Trek films, probably where you'd recognise him from. And it's a futuristic, what if robots kind of took over a little bit sort of story, which is really, really interesting. That's the sort of thing I'm well interested in. I like the sci-fi element of it, and it did get fascinating. Now, this is again a very big kind of sci-fi audio drama, fully immersive, great voice acting, really pulls you in. That kind of sci-fi intrigue of what ifs and twists and turns, and you get embedded in the characters, this sort of stuff. None of these kind of audio dramas feature too many characters because if you can't visualize them, I think people understand it's difficult to follow them. So often you're only listening to about 4 or 5 different characters. Sometimes they'll pull in some extras, that sort of thing. But generally, you've only got 4 or 5 main people at max that you need to think, okay, I know their name and I can recognize their voice. And often what they'll try and do is make their voices distinct enough that they are easy to pick up on who is who, as it were. So that is Ad Lucem, a really interesting kind of science fiction one that I would highly recommend. So if you're a little bit nerdy and like that sort of thing, I'd recommend that. It's high production as well, so it doesn't feel cheesy. It's not, we're not talking kind of nerdy, low grade, cheap sort of sci-fi. We are talking, okay, yeah, I would watch that. This would be like an Apple TV sort of drama level of production. So yeah, that's another one I'd recommend. It's Ad Lucem. I think that's how you pronounce it. I don't think it would be called anything else. And then finally, there is the one that I'm listening to at the moment, which is Star Trek Khan. Now, for some context, if you're not a Star Trek person, there is an episode in the original Star Trek, season 1, episode 23 or 4, I only know that because I've watched it very, very recently, featuring a character called Khan, who comes from the 1990s, so hundreds of years before Star Trek is set, or thousands, I don't know that well, where they have essentially developed superhumans. So imagine, obviously Star Trek came out in like the 60s, so this is in the future for them, but imagine it's in their superhumans, and they took over a lot of Earth. They were then frozen, and they were then put into ship, and the Star Trek crew come across the ship, they find them, and they start to unearth that these were superhumans who took over a lot of Earth, and they could be quite dangerous. Khan is the leader of all of them. At the end of that episode, they are then banished. So Khan and his team are banished to this planet by the captain of the ship. They are then on this planet, and that's where we pick up the audio drama from. There is then a film, Star Trek The Wrath of Khan, which is like the second Star Trek film or something like that, which focuses on what happens after this. So that was filmed years ago, decades ago, and this is that in between, what they were doing on the planet sort of thing. And this is probably the biggest, best production I've heard. I wouldn't necessarily say this is the most fun I've had listening to an audio drama. Some of it I'm really having to you have to know your Star Trek lore, I feel like you have to know who these characters are, you have to know why they're important, why they keep referring to Khan as the greatest human ever, this sort of stuff, where the history for that sort of stuff comes from. But other than that, I would say it's been one of the best, as I said, kind of actual production level audio dramas I've listened to. It was very, very impressive. I don't know how many episodes there are going to be. I think there's like 11, and I'm possibly on about 6 or 7, episode 6 or 7 at the moment. They come out every Monday, so if you want to pick up something at the moment that you know you're going to get new episodes of, and you think, I can catch up to those. Each episode's about 25 minutes long. I don't think I've said that in anything else either. Usually the episodes are about 25 to 45 minutes long, same as a TV series. So yeah, if you want to pick up one that's currently going, I'd recommend Star Trek Khan, because that's quite good. They're some audio dramas that I highly recommend. As I said, they are fascinating. I'm loving audio dramas. My slight issue is that they take over my audiobook listening. So if I consider myself a book reader or a book listener, where I'm trying to update my Goodreads and my Storygraph and give people who are interested in books something to read about on my social media channels, on my YouTube, these can sometimes take up that time, because that's where I do a lot of my reading, is via audiobooks. So if I'm then filling that up with audio dramas in the car whilst I'm walking, that sort of stuff, then it can fill up that time. But what I've decided is that these are only taking about 25 minutes of my week, and I listen to probably 4 or 5 hours worth of audiobooks a week, maybe more, probably more if you consider that I listen to them at 2 times speed. With your audio dramas, by the way, I listen to them at 1 time speed. I don't listen to them quicker at all. That's something quite interesting, something you might want to pick up on. Kind of like you wouldn't speed up a TV series. You might, but I wouldn't. Either way, they are audio dramas. I have rambled. It's been a while since I've done a YouTube video. I'm probably a little bit out of form. If you're new here, subscribe. If you're old here, like and drop a comment down below. And I'll see you in the next video. I'm very warm. This room is way too warm to record videos in. Anyway, see you next video. Goodbye.